experience. So stick with us and participate in any way you can. And we'll kind of start off here with just a few brief introductions. My name is Brianna Hansen, and I'm the Page Grant Program Coordinator at the Page Education Foundation. I've been in this role for close to a year now, and it's been really interesting to see how the Page Grant cycles through each year. And one of my favorite parts is, of course, getting to know the scholars like you. So it's been a pleasure so far. And with that, I'll send it to Arpam. And if you could just give a really short introduction about what year you are and a little bit more about you, that'd be great.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Brianna. My name is Arpam, she, her pronouns, and I am a junior at the University of Minnesota, Twin Cities. This is my first year receiving a Page Grant. And right now I'm majoring in social work and minoring in both leadership and family social sciences. So a couple things on my plate. Um, but for me, I think one of the reasons that I wanted to be a panelist for this specific webinar was because I kind of like, sharing on what I've learned to other people who might benefit. And B, I just thought it sounded interesting and I really wanted to, be able to share my experience as a page scholar. Um, all right, I can hand it over to Nasir.
Thank you. My name is Nasir. I am a freshman at Concordia St. Paul studying business management. My college experience has been I would say pretty different than kind of what I expected, but it has been a really fun journey. Like my first semester, I was doing the living on campus thing, seeing how that was, and it was different and it was really fun to experience. And now I'm commuting, so that's going to be a new opportunity. The reason why I personally decided to get on the panel is because I'm always open to trying new opportunities and seeing kind of what's out there. I'm going to pass it on that now.
Thank you so much. Well, my name is Hania Lopez. So currently I am an ongoing current business and machine learning engineering page scholar here. It's my first year actually. I'm pursuing my Bachelor of Science in Business with North Central University, and I'm doing Quinny Bootcamp on the side for machine learning engineering with Hofstra University online. So that's a little bit about myself, really.
Well, awesome. Thank you all for sharing. It's good to hear perspectives from you too, because I know we do a lot of communicating via email. So it's great to hear you guys actually speak. So thank you so much. So kind of jumping into the next part of our webinar, we're going to look at the objectives. And these are things that we want you to be able to do by the end of the webinar. So they're kind of more direct statements. And the first one is understand what colleges and scholarships are looking for in essay responses. Plain and simple. We'll try and give you a couple of keywords so you know exactly what they're searching for. Another objective we want you to accomplish by the end of the webinar is examining multi-sentence essay questions. I included this one specifically because in the Page Grant application this year, there are longer prompts, especially for new applicants. So I wanted to walk through how to kind of tackle that. And then the next objective is identify topics in answering the tell us about yourself question. And I do think that this objective does apply to returning scholars as well, because if you're applying for any other scholarships or any jobs, that tell us about yourself question comes up a lot, and it's difficult for everyone. So we'd like to kind of talk through that and what people expect. And then the overarching goals of the webinar is just to prepare new college students and returning college students to differentiate themselves through their essay responses. We also want to increase confidence in writing and share various strategies that current successful students like our panelists are already doing to share that knowledge with others. Because I know sometimes it can be intimidating being taught from teachers, professors, elders, anyone like that. But it's different when you hear the perspective from someone who's actually your age and going through exactly what you're going through now. And real quick, I just want to tell you exactly what we're talking about. So quick agenda. We're going to talk about what colleges are looking for, essay responses, reading, understanding, and addressing each part of the essay prompt. That's going to be a big focus. Brainstorming, beginning your essay drafts, role of AI. We're not going to ignore it. We're going to talk about it. And then we're going to jump into our Page Scholars current college writing experience. And then we'll end with a Q&A. And the panelists, so Nasir, Panyal, and Arpam, if you ever want to chime in, because feel free, or if you want to raise your hand, whatever, that's totally fine. I'm going to take the next chunk of time, so I'll be talking for about 20 minutes now, but please feel free to jump in whenever you want. Okay, we'll first answer the question, why do scholarships have essay questions? The reason that scholarships and colleges have those essay prompts is because they're searching for unique stories and perspectives. Because without the essays, you're kind of just a number. And especially with a Page grant, we don't take into consideration high school GPAs. So then we would just be left with like a list of names and a couple letters of recommendation, and that's it. So that's really why essays are here, because it's your opportunity to share anything about you with the reader. And another reason essays are here is to share your passions and interests. Because when you're applying for scholarships or colleges, a lot of times you get in the weeds with the academics. What's your GPA? Where have you worked? What's your extracurriculars? But sometimes we miss that passion part, and the passion and interest can really distinguish you from someone else who's really just focused on academics. We're looking for well-rounded people who want to be part of a community, which leads me into the next bullet point there. Is there's also essays to determine if students are a good fit for a community. And looking at the Page grant again, part of our grant is volunteering with students. So if you can display a motivation to serve your community, work with younger kids, and learn from your prior experiences, scholarships, colleges, they love that. They want to see that you're going to kind of join this community and make it better. And another reason is to capture your excitement for college, and also that writing doesn't stop. Essays are here because they're a form of practice, and practice really leads to progress. So writing doesn't stop when you get to college, it just increases. All right, and then we'll kind of transfer into the next part is what are scholarships looking for in essay responses? They're looking for personal and specific stories. So if you write an essay like a paragraph or something, or answering a question on a Page grant application, and you read it and you think that there could be the exact same essay from someone else, you might want to go back and make some changes because you want to make it personal. So that information only belongs to you. But always remember, only disclose whatever information you're comfortable with. You never want to share too much to make yourself feel uncomfortable. And then another thing to remember is answer the question. So this is a really big one. It can be super easy to read the question and be like, oh yeah, here's an example, and just start writing. But then by the time you're done, you're like, oh my gosh, there's a second part to this question. Or you read the question again and you realize that your answer is way off. So it's really important to read the question. Scholarships are looking for students to answer the question. It's there for a very specific reason. And then this last bullet point kind of just like combines those first two ones, is discuss your culture and experiences and traditions as they pertain to the question. They want to hear about you always, whether that's a job application, a college application, a scholarship application, doesn't matter. People always want to hear about you. And sometimes that's a really hard topic for humans to discuss. And now I know that was a lot of information, but really what it boils down to is answering the question and making it personal. Next part is deconstructing the essay prompt. Now, this is tough. So the first step is read the entire prompt. And the second step is understand what the prompt is asking for by highlighting or underlining action words and important details. Okay, so next I do have a sample question here. Make this a little bit smaller so I can read it. And then I might ask the panelists in a second because you guys have the ability to speak. I can have my guests speak too, but it might be easier for me to ask you guys. I'll ask in a second, but the question is, tell us about yourself and explain the impact education has had on your life thus far. In your answer, include details about your upbringing and educational journey that have shaped who you are today. Okay, so this is one question that is on the application for new applicants. Now, panelists and listeners here, I want you to just take 30 seconds of silence here and think, what's one important element that you would highlight from this question here in the first sentence? Tell us about yourself and explain the impact education has had on your life thus far. Okay, do one of the panelists want to identify something that they might highlight or underline? You can just take your mic off if you want to share.
For me, right off the bat, I noticed that it's talking about A, yourself as a person, and B, how education has impacted you and your life. So that's kind of I guess, the main 2 points that sentence is focusing towards: yourself and education.
Yeah, no, that is perfect. So the first part is tell us about yourself. So generally, right? And then the next part is how has education had an impact on your life thus far? That's perfect. So I'm actually going to jump right to the next slide because you kind of nailed it. So I would highlight, tell us about yourself and explain the impact education has had on your life. Now, the interesting part about this question is that we've really covered all the important parts because in the next sentence it says, in your answer, include details about your upbringing and educational journey that have shaped who you are today. So it's really just giving you a little bit of a push of what to include to answer that first question. So it's going to tell you to include details about your upbringing and your educational journey. All right. And step 3, after you've highlighted the important parts, is to separate the prompt into parts, which we already did by highlighting those specific parts. This is part 1 about yourself, and then this other purple part is part 2. And I won't go into excruciating detail here, but this is kind of a good way to make sure that you're answering all parts of the question here. So in this first green bubble, I have part 1, and in this second green bubble, I have part 2, and I labeled them here. And then if you notice here, I have experiences in upbringing and experiences in educational journey. I have them way up here because it's just something to keep in mind while you're thinking of topics for each part. So, thinking of your upbringing while you think of your topics, and think of your educational journey as you think of these topics. And this is a great slide to use if you're answering that question. So if you're a new student or you just want help with answering the about yourself question, it might be beneficial to print this off. I can always send this in a follow-up email too, in case you want to use it for future writing prompts. And let's see, the first one is personal details. So one topic you want to talk about is personal details, and that's simply your name, your defining attributes in your family and culture. So family and culture might come later, but just first introduce who you are. We've never met you as readers, and we want to know who you are. And then a next topic could be personal challenges and triumphs. Talk about challenges and then also achievements. Challenges are really good topics if you can tie them back in and tell them exactly what you've learned from that challenge. Because everyone experiences hardship, and if you can like twist that to make it positive and show that you are full of growth, that's a great way to kind of display who you are. And then also you could talk about volunteerism and work experiences, and again, your hobbies and interests. As far as education goes in the second part, you might want to talk about education's role in your current abilities. Maybe you had a great teacher, a great chemistry teacher, and you had never considered chemistry before, but based on that one experience, it kind of shifted your whole trajectory. That would be a really great story to tell. Another one could be aspirations of education in your future, and the impact of education on the world. This one's tricky because sometimes students get very broad with this, but it's more effective if you can kind of zone in on one area that you really hope to improve in the world based on your education. Do any of the panelists, do you have anything to add to this kind of breakdown of a question so far? It's okay if you don't, but I just want to allow some breathing room in case you have something you'd like to add. No problem. All right, so now our listeners here, you can just kind of do this on your own, but I wanted to give all of you a chance to try it by yourself and just kind of see how your answers reflected what we'll talk about next. So how would you deconstruct this essay question into parts? Besides financial support, tell us how the Page Grant aligns with your primary values and how it would help you achieve your pursuit of a post-secondary degree and career goals. I'll just be quiet for a few moments for you to process, figure out how you'd break that into parts. All right. Hopefully that was enough time. It's hard to judge when you don't have feedback. But I'm curious for our three panelists here, if you could read that question and kind of think in your head, you can take more time if you need to. Can you show me with your fingers like how many parts you might divide that question into? And it's okay if your number is different than the one I have next. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of threes. These definitely are students who have experience because I also thought it was three, and we'll kind of show you why. So the three parts that I determined was, the first one is, how does the Page Grant align with my values? Okay, so going back here, it says, tell us how the Page Grant aligns with your primary values. That's one. And then how it would help you achieve your pursuit of a post-secondary degree. That's two. Okay, so that's our second one here. And then the very last part of the question, it says, and career goals. So we can't forget that little bit. That's three parts. Now, if you only read this sentence once, you might have missed that post-secondary degree and career goals part. You might have talked about two things. So that's why it's really important to deconstruct the prompt and divide it into parts. All right, so we'll kind of talk about our brainstorming next. So we said deconstruct the question into parts, exactly. And then the next important thing to do is use bullet points to help you jot down sample topics that you might want to touch on for each part. And then always ask yourself, does the topic answer the question. That's why those topics are there in general. And then the last thing is write down your ideas, examples, and experiences under each of those topics. And remember, any ideas are welcome at this stage. If you write down a bunch of stuff and you're like, actually, that's not that great, that's totally fine, because now you've kind of got the wheels turning, you have some ideas going, and your writing just might flow a little bit better. So these bullet points here are the ideas that I thought of to answer each part. But these are just ideas. Okay, so if I were actually going to start writing my answer to this prompt, I might look at my ideas here and then look at all the words. Okay, so here are some of my values, like reliable, hardworking, considerate, and positive. Well, I'm looking at this, and if I'm a student who has a lot of younger siblings, I might feel really reliable because when they were young, I had to stay home and watch them while my parents were at work or went out to get groceries, things like that. So if there's one idea that really stands out to you and you have 3 parts to cover, just choose one. And really drive home something that you have a great example of. And these other ideas here are just like, how will the Page Grant help me in college? Well, it might help you take accountability because you have to mentor students. It might help you be an advocate for yourself and others around me, and compassionate with others who are learning. So again, I might expand on compassionate with others who are learning, because I love working with kids. And I can take an example of when I've worked with kids and helped be empathetic with them and compassionate with them so they felt like they belonged. So in short, these are our big parts. The bullet points are our smaller ideas. And then the next bullet point after each one of the ideas would be your examples or your experiences. Okay, and this kind of just like goes through that again. So you want to pick one of your topics that you feel most confident about, write about 5 sentences. Then you want to look at the next part. Okay, so maybe you wrote 5 sentences about being reliable. Then you look at this next part and you write 5 sentences about being compassionate with others who are learning. Okay, and then after that, you move on to your last part, which is how will the Page Grant help me achieve my career goals? And you choose one of these, maybe interacting with my classmates to establish connections. That would be a total of 15 sentences if you stayed true to the 5 sentences per paragraph, which would easily get you to your word count. Okay, and then after you have all that information, it's always good to go back, read through your writing, and write a nice introductory sentence that kind of rephrases the question and includes your topics. And I'll show you a quick example of that. So if the question is, what are 2 of your core values? How will they guide you in your pursuit of a post-secondary degree? You might write an introductory sentence that's something like this. So I just made this up. I didn't even have a paragraph to go off of yet, but I'll show you how it works. As an incoming college student pursuing physical therapy, my core values include empathy to build strong relationships and intellectual curiosity to remain current long after I receive my degree. Now, this is a good start of an intro sentence because it includes your 2 core values, just like in the question, and it tells you how they will guide you in your pursuit of a post-secondary degree. You're going to build strong relationships, and you're going to remain current long after you're done with your degree. So it's a good thing to go back. Some people prefer to start with an intro sentence because it gets them on the right track. If that's not for you, write it after. Or if you're one of those people that's more comfortable writing it at the front, do that too. Whatever works for you. It's not an exact science, but getting as much information as you can to determine what is your way is always a good idea. And then to kind of wrap up my part, because I've been talking for a while, we'll talk about the role of AI. and my panelists might have some more things to share about AI. So I'll do my talking, and then if anyone of you wants to kind of chime in and talk a little bit about how you used AI in college, that would be great. But first we'll look at like what's encouraged and what's not acceptable as like an opposite of that. The first thing that's encouraged is to use AI as a tool and not as a crutch, because if you use it as a crutch, you're no longer creating your own content. So really the best thing to do is to get all of your ideas down, write it in a cohesive manner, and then use AI to edit what you have so far. That's a tool because you've done the heavy lifting. Another thing is use AI, the use of AI is most ethical after you've completed your essays, kind of like what I just talked about here. You can use it for revision and editing, but just make sure you establish your own ideas first. And the last one kind of ties into that too, is paste your final draft to edit your thoughts and ideas. And as many of you probably know, AI is very smart. So the more specific of a prompt you can give it, the better. So if you paste your essay in there, you can say, please look at my grammar, point out any grammar mistakes that are currently in there. And then it'll give you a list of all your grammar mistakes and you can fix it right then and there. So it is a great tool, but it does need to be used ethically. And just like in our Scholar Handbook, any form of plagiarism, so that's taking the content from AI and marking it as your own, will be like punished, for lack of a better term here. But if we find that you have plagiarized, then you will not be granted the page grant, and you also will not have an opportunity to reapply. So we do take it really seriously, much like colleges do. So please just be responsible with your use of AI. Haniel, Nasir, Arpam, do you have anything that you'd like to add in regard to that topic?
I could go. I wouldn't mind.
Yeah. Do you just
Essentially,
want to talk about AI or do you want to do your slides?
just let's talk about AI just a little bit.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah, for sure. So a little bit what like how AI works essentially kind of like analyzes like patterns in our language usage. So essentially kind of like fills in gaps in our language bridges. So it helps us kind of like, kind of analyze that statistical model of that aspect. It also uses algorithms to kind of like predict what you're going to say next. So it's like, oh, okay, so they told me this. So then they probably might say this, just like for example, say for like you hang out with someone for a long time and you kind of get these like gimmicks, these like low language tweaks like they have. It's like, oh, they're probably like do this or they're probably like talk like that. So it's like, it's what's it called? Generative AI. So it's like you input something and it gives you something that it can only predictive based on that. So
Yeah, oops, so sorry. Yeah, no, that is, oh, sorry here. Thank you so much for saying that. That is very helpful because I know AI is very complex. And can you remind me of your major again? Are you in tech at all?
So I do have tech background based on my internship experiences, but I am pursuing a Bachelor of Science in Business at North Central, but I am doing an ongoing coding bootcamp with Hostel University. So it's kind of like a mix of both, if that makes sense.
Nice. Okay, thank you so much for sharing your perspective there. Arpam or Nasir, do you have anything else? It's okay if you don't.
I think both of you have some really good points. I don't really have much to add except for the fact that AI can be not very smart at times. It can be like a little bit like if you give it a prompt about, things that are more reflective reflective prompts like the page grant has, then it's not very good at answering that. Like Haniel said, it's more about analyzing patterns that already exist from existing media and things on the internet. So that's why it's like really, really important to be specific if you are going to use AI, but B, really making sure that you are tailoring the responses that you're giving in your writing on the application, to include your personal reflections, your personal thoughts, opinions, emotions.
Yeah, I really like that, because that's what the start of this webinar was kind of all about, is really personalize it, give specific experiences. And if AI is just using like things that are already on the media, that clearly isn't your own too. And it could be easier to spot if it's just taking general trends, especially if we're asking people the same questions, you know, because we read through all of the essays many times, different people read through them. So if we're seeing the same introduction each time, that's kind of a red flag for us reviewers. So just really being careful and using it responsibly. Thank you both so much for sharing. Yeah, go ahead.
So I just like talking about AI.
Yeah, who
Yeah.
doesn't these days?
Yeah, so essentially, there's also like a kind of like the type of prospects of learning. Deep learning is kind of like the subset of like machine learning. So like neural networks within kind of like trying to simulate the behavior of like human behavior. So like I said before, it kind of like assumes like huge amounts of data from data sets to basically characterize, oh, like what they represent the data to be. That is why data scientists are definitely needed. And for example, like narrow AI is kind of like the like low, like it says in the name, it's kind of like touching the only surface level of like things like Siri or Alexa. It's like, hey Siri, like turn off my lights, like things like that, you know. Very simple.
Yeah,
The qualitative amount of layering you give in the input.
cool. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So now with that, there might be a little bit more AI talk depending on what our panelists want to discuss in their little segment here. But with that, we'll move on to your personal stories here. And I do want to preface too that I believe, yeah, ARPA. So you're going to be up first, and you're talking about your experience with the Page Grant essay writing, and Nasir will be talking about college writing experience, and then Haniel will wrap us back up with kind of Page Grant experience. So it goes Page Grant, college, Page Grant. If that makes sense. All right, Arpam, you can take it away.
Thank you so much. So how I wanted to structure my topic is more of, like an informal way of sharing tips and tricks that I've learned while writing for being a first-time applicant. So of course I have some bullet points up on my slide. Feel free to screenshot. I'm sure you can also access from the YouTube video and other places. But I really wanted to kind of take my time to be more of a way to like share tips and tricks that I've learned throughout my years of doing college writing as a junior and also as being a first-time applicant for the Page Grant this past year. And I feel like a lot of the things that I'm going to share are going to coincide with what was already discussed in the slides that Brianna talked about, but I don't know. I feel like just maybe if I share it in a different way, it might have a different impact. Um, and sometimes it might just be nice to like hear a different opinion. But anyway, to get started, the first thing that I found was helpful was to start early. I know we all have a tendency to procrastinate. I know it's the spring coming up soon. Winter break just ended. We don't want to do writing, but I promise you, your writing is going to be so much more high quality if you start early. And if you do start early, you have more time to plan out your outline, figure out what you're going to say, figure out what parts fit where. You're just going to have more time to be able to explore more options. Whereas if you, of course, rush into it and just like go boom, 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 you're probably not going to have as much time to edit, revise, and rethink your responses. So definitely start early. And also, if you can, plan an outline. really, really focus in on deconstructing those prompts, because that's one of the best planning strategies that I myself have used while writing these responses. It's so helpful to be able to look at those prompts and then figure out where you're going to go from start to finish, especially since the page grant in particular has word limits on all the responses. So the more you can figure out before you start writing the bulk of your response, the better. And then in addition to planning an outline, I would say try and do a writing warm-up. I know that they're not exactly for everyone, but in my experience, and also research shows that if you just like kind of rush into writing, like you have your outline, you have everything planned out, you're good to go. But if you just kind of like rush into writing your responses, sometimes you're going to be more likely to like get stuck or have writer's block or whatnot. Whereas if you do a writing warm up, you're probably going to be able to get your creative juices flowing in a way that's not really as like time consuming or takes as much of your brain power. And there's really easy ways to do these writing warm-ups. You can literally just go online and say easy writing warm-ups XYZ. So plan an outline, and if you can, do a writing warm-up. On the topic of plagiarism in AI, my next point is to reuse your own writing when you can. And what I mean by that is when you apply to colleges, when you apply for scholarships, and many other kinds of applications, they can ask you to do various types of essay responses. And they usually have the same kind of themes of tell me about yourself, tell me about your values, tell me about your work, your family, etc. If you already have responses that deal with those kinds of topics, I would say use them sparingly and use them in a way that makes sense for their responses. Do not procrastinate, do not plagiarize, of course, but if you've already written a response that you feel like, oh, okay, I feel like this paragraph that I wrote could be edited in a way to maybe fit this response a little bit better. I would say, of course, try and take those little shortcuts when you can. Um, so that might be something that could possibly cut down some time in writing. And then, of course, to make sure that you are keeping your responses specific and unique and making sure that you're using your resources. We already talked a little bit about how to make those responses specific and unique, but I'll give one example that I've seen very frequently, and I've actually done it myself. A lot of like children of immigrants, children of refugees, POC students, they'll be using their like personal struggles based on their identity. And that can be a very, very sensitive and difficult topic to talk about. Because how are you supposed to, like tell all these complex, deep struggles relating to your identity and just like wrap it up and say, oh, and here's the fix and here's how I'm going to fix it, So I would say if you do talk about something that relates to one of your facets of your identity, make sure you're talking about it in a way that feels authentic. And that might mean that there's not exactly an easy fix, there's not an easy way to solve anything. But if you think it's important and you think that it's something that illustrates what you want to say in your response, I mean, who am I to stop you? Just make sure you're doing it in a way that feels authentic, unique, and is conveying the feeling that you're trying to write about. And then with that, I'll wrap up with my last point, which is to use your resources. It can be very hard for me personally, I know, to edit, revise my responses. So like look around you. Use what you have at your school, use what you have in your community. I know many libraries and homework help centers around community centers and like different areas that serve students. They can help you edit your responses. Feel free to ask like school staff or you know, anyone from rec centers, like just look around your community, look around your network, look around where you go to and see what's available to support you while you're doing all of this. And that's all I have for my slide. I will hand it off to the next panelist.
Yeah, I do want, sorry, Nasir, I just want to chime in real quick. Thank you so much, Arpam, for sharing all that information. It was super great. There was something, gosh. Oh, I just wanted to comment on when you said to use like prior writing examples. And I got a good question recently where a page scholar was like, can I just use an essay from last year? And the answer is a strict no, because that is plagiarism. But, you know, like you mentioned, if you're applying to many scholarships and they have like kind of the same concepts, pull those concepts so you don't have to, you know, reinvent the wheel every time, but do just make sure it is absolutely personalized for the specific thing to avoid any form of plagiarism. But awesome.
For sure. Do not like by any do not just copy and paste your responses, guys. That is plagiarism. Do
Right.
not copy paste and edit like 2-3 sentences.
Yeah.
That's also plagiarism.
Right.
But definitely, you know, take concepts and things that seemed like they would be strong talking points. You can definitely pull some of those themes again. Just don't copy paste.
Exactly. So I just thank you so much. It was great. All right, Nasir, I won't take any more of your time. You can go ahead whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you. Yeah, I agree with a lot of the stuff that Arpan was saying, that the use of AI could, like, if you use it the wrong way, then it could have some negative effects. Like plagiarism is nothing to joke around. I know a lot of schools take it seriously. My school personally takes it really seriously. I'm gonna explain to you guys my experience in my college writing class from my first semester. Um, I want to start by saying that writing really hasn't been like a strong suit for me, but in college, I kind of find myself to be writing way more than what I was able to in high school. And I would really like to say, like, for me personally, the best way to do that is to relate it to you, like personalize it and relate it to kind of whatever you're going through or whatever you can connect it to. It makes it way easier to talk about when there's a connection there. Like at first I thought that my college writing class would be like a really hard writing class. I would be stuck. I wouldn't know what to do. I thought it would be a really big class. Like my professor would never help me, but it was completely the opposite. The professors here are so supportive. They'll take any time out of their day to help you as long as you just communicate with them. Anything like that. Also, like the support and the resources available are just like it's a generous amount. Like you can really kind of look anywhere. Like I said, professors will be willing to help you. There's a writing center, the library, there's study groups, just a bunch of different support and resources that you can use. I know some scholarships and some other places offer support too with help with writing. Just there's a bunch of different things you can kind of do. In my college writing class, we wrote about 6 essays, each one gradually getting bigger. I think the first one started off with about 500 words, and all the way to the sixth one, which is I think it was a minimum of 1,000 words. And those numbers can seem scary, but like a lot of the stuff that you do in the writing classes, like you'll go over it in class, kind of like day by day, and they'll generally just help you just slowly build it and slowly get there, which is really nice and really useful. So definitely be present in your classes and stuff. And I personally have a business major, and I know that in that class we're doing a little bit of writing, maybe a lot of writing, but not as much as a college writing class. And it was a bunch of things like weekly journals. There was presentations, reflections, just a bunch of things, and they would be constant. So maybe weekly, maybe every other week, um, maybe every other week, and just a bunch of different kind of like things. But the best way I said is just to connect it to you and find whatever works for you and use the tools around you. Um, in my CSV seminar class, I was writing a little less, maybe like I think it was about a reflection from one article a week. The teacher was very inclusive. There weren't too many people in that class, but she was more than willing to help me and any of us when we needed it. And she offered a bunch of other tools. So I would like to wrap it up by saying, like, use your resources around you and you'll never really struggle.
Nice. Thank you so much for sharing. I have a question for you because you mentioned the Writing Center. Have you used the Writing Center at your college?
I haven't personally got a chance to use it, but my roommate has used it and he's told me kind of all about it. And what they do in there is there are personalized tutors that kind of, and they're college students, they know exactly what you've been through, they know the exact assignments, and they'll sit down and devote some time to really help you just work one-on-one on whatever you're working through.
Yeah, I know. I had that resource at my college too, and it can be daunting at first, especially like walking in and like I thought I was like, okay, this person doesn't really know my professor, doesn't know the prompt. But every time that I went in there, you're right, they knew exactly what they were doing and they helped with things that I didn't even think were a problem beforehand. So it is a really valuable source.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you so much, Nasir. All right. And then here we go. We'll go to Hanyel whenever you're ready.
Oh snap. All right. Well, thank you guys. So I just want to introduce myself. My name is Haniel. I'm NCU. So currently I wanted to just like thank you guys for just giving me a chance here to present this webinar. For basically giving you guys kind of the rundown of how to make college writing easy for you guys. My hope is kind of giving you guys like how to do the process way easier than I was when I wasn't really familiar with the page grant and what you guys did at the time. And honestly, I really gotta say, like, being a page grant has definitely got its perks. Like when you call yourself a page grant, really take that with honor. You know, some perks, for example, come with this year. We had, I remember, I was called the Justice Flourishing Gala at the U.S. Bank, where students, the paid scholars, got prone to networking opportunities with executives. Like, do you mind? Like, do you think about that? It's like, wow, like, I'm really here, guys. I'm really connecting with people. Like, perhaps I could, hey, give me that opportunity. Perhaps you could connect me somewhere here. Sky's the limit with you guys. All right. Our goal here, truly here at the Page Grant, is to give you guys the leadership development you guys need to be able to give back to the community, but also pursuing your educational endeavors. So first things first, we have to also recognize that application deadline is April 1st, 2024, and your management determines your overall success. So a little bit of some things that I would recommend is setting up a Google Doc according to the scholarship for this specific grant. It's a page grant, so I would just manage your archives such manners, right? I would also keep track of your page grant portal during your application. I did the ill management of not keeping the password, so I had to reset it. So it was kind of kind of ill of me. But if you are enrolled in college or things of that sort, you could also in application, it does ask you for college ID if that is applicable to you right now. Back then I wasn't really enrolled to any college. I just do that. I was like, dang, I want to go to college. Like something inside me wants to go to college. Like, and also have your social ID number, super helpful in the long run. And also have your 1040 tax return on file. And you might ask yourself, what exactly is a 1040 tax file? So essentially, it's a report that your income to the IRS, it tracks your adjusted gross income. and just basically ask, hey, dad or mom or guardian, if they fill out the 1040 tax form, and if it's separate, just upload both forms. And if you don't have this form, just feel free to call the Page Education Foundation and a Page Grant. But and also to go a little bit in digression, in the application, keep track of your unique prospect and ideas based on the Google Doc. Copy and paste the specific questions. I know there are 4 questions with a minimum of 250 words and a maximum 500 words. In this application, it also allows you to send a letter of recommendation. So what is that person, what does that mentor look like for you? Have their email, preferably an IDU mentor, teacher, or whomever reference without submitting it. You could ask them for a letter of recommendation without submitting your application. And also another thing that I want to focus on is the key lies in guidelines, visions, and metrics. This is done by researching the organization values and mission. For example, the Page Education Foundation, for this specific grant, it is founded by Justice Alan Page, where they are committed to having you guys have a pursuit of a higher education. And not only that, empowering and exemplary leadership that are willing to give back to the community. That is what we're looking for. And really, first comes with the research aspect of what the organization is about. So like, I think recognizing of what exactly is the vision, what exactly is their mission. And not only that, metrics, guys. Metrics is super key. The way that we measure value is by present tense analogies, metrics, achievements, experience, and principles. We want to see people who overcome and are willing to give and back to know what they do best through their education, because time is money and money is time. The way people see value in our time is by talking about your past experience. Perhaps you have like a really great internship, perhaps, or perhaps you're associated with really cool affiliations such as Act 6, Avid, College Passport, Genesis Works. Like for me, for example, I was in Genesis Works, and really the only thing like I was in the midst of was like, hey, I really didn't like have any like didn't expectancies, but I did have experience on my hand where my example response to tell us how you about yourself and how your education journey has impacted you. Kind of the idealistic approach I kind of went for was hire for attitude, train for aptitude. Meaning there are things that you guys already have that perhaps you might not even consider, but the things that you guys could qualify as a metric and things that you guys only have, specifically that journey that costs you to be here, perhaps that vision, that person you do it for. Like for me, for example, an internship experience I had at Genesis Works, where I led an agile team. Like that's cool. You know, I delivered the results of a simulated shoe store where 150 participants with 500 companies, 500 Fortune 500 companies like Medtronic. You know, there's the things that you could definitely use for metrics. And when doing so, do so with the rest of the prompts and revise it with a classmate, perhaps a mentor, perhaps a teacher. And once revised, use AI responsibly to correct the grammar and fact check everything, of course, because we want to make sure our quality data is ever more showcasing of who we are within that grant aspect description. Hopefully I covered it.
Sorry if I was slow on the slides here. I know you probably had your own, so that's my bad here.
Fine.
Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Danielle? I didn't interrupt you, did I?
Let's see. I guess the only really thing is kind of like talking about in past, present, and future terms, because
Mhm.
the number speaks for itself. People love to see how obstacles in tangible measure ways are make you who you are. Like how good of a student are you? Perhaps you have that like great like 4.9, perhaps 3.5. I'm not sure. But metrics shows what type of person you are. Perhaps that leadership role you have, that experience makes you, right?
Yeah.
So inform some sentiments, don't make it sappy or like victimize. We want to focus on how you overcame obstacles and tangible actions, right? Because we all have that specific story, right? Like for me, I come from humble beginnings. Like, of course, I could go on all about that, but that isn't me because the past is the past. I live in the present, but I can determine my future, right?
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's really powerful to include all aspects because, like only talking about the past doesn't really show what potential you have for the future to come in your education. So I think that's really insightful.
Mhm.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you all so much. I'll kind of give a minute here. If anyone has any questions, you can use the Q&A box. So we'll just kind of sit tight to see if any of those come in. Um, and then I'm actually while we kind of wait for the Q&As, if any come, I'm just gonna ask kind of a general question. If you all, the panelists here can think back to like when you were first a first year Page Scholar, how long did it take you to fill out the application, do everything, get your transcripts, write your essays, the tax forms? Because I feel like that can be a daunting process for new students. So I'm curious to see like the realistic time frame for each of you. So whoever wants to speak up can go for it.
I guess I can start. Um, right off the bat, I would say get those recommendations into your mentors early. Um, so for me, I said before that this is my first year as a Page Scholar. Um, and I remember applying, I think it was like last winter. Um, and it took my two mentors multiple weeks to be able to just get to the forms because they have jobs, they have other things going on. So first of all, I would say get those recommendation forms into your people early. And then for the tax stuff, I would say that took me around an hour or so. Luckily, I was able to access those forms pretty easily. I had copies. It was just a matter of like uploading them slash filling in the blanks. But then also you want to make sure that they're the right forms.
Yeah.
Um, for me personally, I think the thing that took the most actual like time to complete, the most manual labor, was the writing portion, of course. But the other responses, the like personal information, all of that took me a good another hour or so.
Mhm.
Because of course you want the right information and you want to be able to check it over again.
Yeah.
Um, and that brings me to the writing portion, which, if I'm being honest, I did kind of do in one sitting, which is
Mhm.
why I included in my slide to not do that because I was down to the wire. I was down to the
Yeah.
minute. It was not fun. It was very anxiety inducing. So please don't do that.
Yeah.
Um, but that portion took me around like a good 3, 4 hours of just straight writing.
Mhm.
So,
And that's doing it all in one go. So yeah,
yeah,
it can seem like a big task if we're doing it all. Not saying anything bad about doing that because I understand that getting down to the wire happens, like we're human, no problem with it. But if you can avoid it and you spread it out and do 20 minutes a day, that's a really small portion of your time. So
exactly.
yeah. Thanks so much for sharing. That was very insightful.
Of course.
We did get a question, and maybe one of you can answer. The person asked, "What is a mentor, and how can you get a mentor?" So, do any of you have a mentor right now?
Since I'm on, my mic is on, I can just quickly answer. A mentor is anyone you want it to be. A mentor is really kind of like an umbrella term. For me personally, I don't have like one specific person that I can go like, oh, you are my mentor. That is your position. Mentors are just people that help you. They're people who guide you. Um, a mentor can be anyone from a teacher to someone who is in your workplace. to someone that you volunteer with? Um, for me personally, in terms of like mentors that I submitted my recommendation form to, I submitted one to a professor I had a very close relationship with, and also one of the people at the organization I worked at, because I had a close relationship with them and also like was very passionate about the organization or program. I hope that answered the question okay.
Yeah, I think so. Do either of you have something to add? Yeah.
I could also add in.
Mhm.
So yeah, so essentially kind of like what mentors, like she said, could really be anybody, but it's really anybody with the expertise and knowledge from their more like experience for like perspective. Like if like a good friend of mine, it was like connection of mine from my connections with my friend over at college where I forgot his name was Dave Hahn. He was a CEO of Urban Ventures. So he would just like connect to me. I was just like, wow, like, I lack a lot of experience because you have lived a lot more than I have, But I really appreciate you like closing into that. And also, I just want to like share with what's it called, for the page, when you're in the page grant, you could also be offered a college coffee and conversation mentor, the CCC. It's a mentor mentee experience, but it will kind of helps you build your professional network and kind of like hit it on you, like where do you want to go, things of that sort, working with someone who has more experience really. So that's a
Yeah.
little bit of resource I can put on too.
Yeah, I like both of those descriptions. Basically, it some sound it can be anyone who you kind of look up to and see as like a reference. Yeah, good. Nasir, I know you had your hand up. It's okay if you don't want to share anything, but do you have a mentor or anything you want to share about that?
Yeah, me personally, I've had a couple different mentors, but the mentor that helped me with getting into college and stuff was a high school teacher. Like professors, like there's just a bunch of different resources that you can find, and it's kind of like Haniel said, like people who have experience and some of the stuff that like you're not so experienced in, people who kind of just want to help.
Yeah. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you all so much. Well, I want to stay true to our time. I know we're a couple minutes over, so I want to let everyone go who's taken the time to come here. And just really give a huge thank you to our panelists and to everyone who came. So thank you so much. There's a survey at the end of this, so once you exit, there's a link that you can do. It only takes about 3 minutes, so I'd really appreciate it if you could do that. And Page Scholars who are here and earning STC hours, I will send you a little certificate that you can fill out and then upload to the Scholar Portal. So thank you so much and have a good day. Okay, bye panelists. I'll say bye to you. A special thank you to you guys. Okay, bye now.
Bye.